Oh, g'day guys. Just going to have a rant. I haven't had one for a while. So, the first person I'm actually going to throw under the bus is myself. Just over the past couple of weeks, just what I put out there, I haven't actually been overly happy with in hindsight. My heart just hasn't been in. I've been a bit flat. Haven't put the necessary time in, and as the saying goes, I've just virtually mailed it in, doing the minimum amount of work required. In my defence, I do have a semi-legitimate excuse, in that, without going too much into it, just had a sort of family medical condition, which obviously meant time's been at a bit of a premium, and it's when you weigh up sort of what you're going to do with your time, it's a pretty easy decision that the tipping side of things is the one that's going to sort of always sort of fall behind. However, that's just an excuse, and it's probably made me just as guilty of those that I've been most critical of whilst I've been doing this thing, as I think I've probably had the mindset I could just put anything out there and treat sort of the viewing, listening, reading audience as idiots. The only person that hurts most is myself. I was probably doing myself a disservice more than anything. And plus, obviously, I like to think I've got a small, loyal following out there, so probably sort of playing on their trust a little bit as well. So in hindsight, I've got no doubt I would have been better off putting nothing out there than the sort of rubbish that I did. It's something I've always taken a bit of pride in, that stuff that I do put out, there's a fair bit of effort goes into it, and it's of a certain quality, but I'm very aware that I've probably dropped the ball a little in this regard of late, and I apologise for that. But, in my own defence, the results haven't been terrible. If we look at the overall results, the past couple of weeks, just the set I sent out have actually won, but I've been around long enough to know that that's been by more good luck than good management, because I'm well aware that by not doing the work, I'm getting a lot of the reading the races incorrectly, and whilst finished on the right side of the ledge of the past couple of weeks, it's just, as I think I said before, more good luck than good management. But so if we just have a look at just my Twitter feed, just the set sent out there yesterday, so you can see we spent 38 units. Said there's 6 units Christian Jazz, about $9, so there's 54 back, and 2 on Salt and Fella at 10, so there's say about 75 back for your 38. But it'd be very easy for me to crap on about how I won 35 units or something, but as I mentioned before, I know I can see the big picture, that if I'm reading races incorrectly and not putting the necessary time in, that's not sustainable over the long term. So, so to crap on about, look at me, I won 35 units. It's like putting lipstick on a pig, if truth be told. Similar happened last week. I got bailed out by Washy's Chance. Had a horror night tipping wise, but results say that I won. It's the old lipstick on a pig's probably a good analogy, I think. But anyway, but the other thing about spending a fair bit of time in and around hospitals the past couple of weeks, it's you've got a lot of me time, and obviously the mind sort of drifts off on certain things, so you tend to ponder a lot about your life and how you're spending your time, and it probably brought me to the conclusion that I'm just beating my head against a brick wall with a lot of the stuff I do here. I put a fair bit of time in, and to be honest, it feels pointless, to sort of look back at it. Maybe as a bit naive, think I could change behaviours from sort of those at the forefront of the industry, for lack of a better description. Maybe I was wrong in trying to do it in a polite and respectful manner, because that doesn't seem to cut it. But last night, the one thing that annoyed me more than anything was, I was surprised that Colin McNiff was calling, because, look, I will actually just first of all say that I actually really like Colin as a caller. He does a super job with the gallops, but he should never, ever, ever be calling harness racing, let alone a feature race, as you've only got to listen to him and it's clear that his heart's just not in it. Like, how is the harness racing industry expected to try and sell its product if it's apparent to anybody listening to the broadcast that the caller himself doesn't give a rat's ass about the caper? It was almost embarrassing to listen to the Dandy Patch call, which is a Group 3 race for the highest amount of prize money on offer in Tasmania, and have two of the leading three chances in the race to have their names pronounced incorrectly the entire race is bordering on laughable. Actually, laughable is probably not strong enough. Embarrassing is the right term. Almost dropped the F-bomb there. So, so might have to change the sort of rating of the recording to R. But but that's just, it's what I was getting stuck in myself about at the start. I can just turn up and mail it in. I'll still get paid. Nobody will care. It's this mindset that's dragging the industry down, because it's not only that instance, it's in all walks of life across the board with the industry. Like, if you think of the general public out there, if anybody puts so little care into their everyday job, they wouldn't be in it for long. They'd soon get a tap on the shoulder. But I've got no doubt that it even, raised a blip on the Tas Racing management radar that I wouldn't have known he made a mistake or anything like that. So that's sort of one gripe from last night. But as I said, Collins shouldn't have been in that position to start with. They should have put their foot down and said, no, it's apparent that you're harness racing, you're just not selling the product. So that's as much a management as his issue. The way form guides are my old pet hate, the way it's sort of done and sent out to punters. Let's just keep it simple. Form guides are still done now the same way as they were 25 years ago, when it was 95% parimutuel. There's been two huge growth areas, the only two growth areas in wagering in recent times, being fixed odds and Betfair. But there's been nothing at all made, no effort whatsoever made to try and meet this market segment. And it's a national epidemic. Everyone does their form the same way. Actually, I might just drag up try and do some type of diagram. I'll just hit pause for a sec. So I just opened up Paint. I've got no idea if this will work or not, but I'm just going to try and do a Venn diagram and explain very roughly how the form analysis works and how it misses the mark. So we'll just draw a couple of circles. Actually, not happy with that one. He's not too flash either. But I'll leave it there. It's just only going to be rough, but so we've got the two. So we've got punters. And over here we've got owners, trainers, drivers, etc. So my argument is that the form analysis is directed at, we'll just pick some, at this crew. So the only people who actually read it are owners, trainers and drivers. You might get the occasional punter. These type of punters are driven more by price sensitive, they, you know, or they'll read their own form guide, or they'll cop a tip from somebody. That's it. So that's not driving turnover at all. You know, if we just sort of, if we put, say, another colour here. So there's your punters over there, and the only area that these two, the form analysis, hits with the punting mentality is this little area right here. As you can see, so we're pouring all our resources into the form analysis as done currently, and it's hitting that percentage there in that little, I'm not sure what type of shape you'd call that, but you know, that's, if we look at that, we're missing sort of 96-97% of the punters, you know, just with the way the form's delivered now. So you know, you've got Betfair punters, you've got fixed odds punters, so none of them are going to sort of take any lead. And between Betfair and fixed odds, it's about 70% of your turnover on a race, and you're totally ignoring that medium. And we keep hearing that turnover is the lifeblood of the industry, but that's probably the worst diagram you'll ever see, but I think you get the drift of where I'm coming from. Yeah, so, but you know, if you just think of, if I go back to that diagram, like Sky Channel, I'm quite critical of and does have many detractors, but at least they recognise that fixed odds is important. You know, like we're still in bed with the bloody radio, for God's sake. Like, I don't know any punter who still sort of works off the radio, but back to the Sky Channel example, like they have Dave Stanley sitting in the studio. Like any serious punter knows he's talking total rubbish with the market movers and, you know, that type of thing, but the rank and file just eat that type of stuff up. And they're more likely to blindly follow a market mover because they hear it. Oh, this has been sixes into fours. You know, they're like bees to a honeypot, getting in the queue at the tote. Whereas you could have the best form argument of all time and it'd fall on deaf ears. You know, it makes all punters sound like idiots, but for the majority it's harsh but true. And yeah, so there's a couple of probably the bigger things. I could go on for ages about other things, but probably the other thing that it's a bit sort of in line with the form argument I was just mentioning, that we're really lacking in, you know, like it's been a long time since I've been at university, but I can still remember things that were paramount in economic success, where things like you had to be creative, innovative and progressive. And I don't think we tick any of those boxes. Now, if we think of, I'm trying to think of a couple of big companies, like Kodak, probably the best example, Blockbuster. They're great examples of what happens if you don't adapt to meet your market. You know, if we just think of Kodak, we can draw some similarities between them. Like, they like Tas Racing's leading the way. They've got the live stream and things like that. Kodak actually invented the world's first digital camera, but it was their thinking that why would we invest money in this when it's probably only going to hurt our core product? Like, it's that narrow-mindedness that, where are Kodak and Blockbuster now? They're long gone. They're like your corner stores there, because neither of them had that mindset of being creative or innovative. Like, it's the punting, the demand, not the demand, I'm trying to think of the right word, but the punting dollar, the racing industry gets less and less of it nowadays. And to try and make yourself stand out in that racing window, you need to somehow differentiate ourselves. The only thing that would differentiating ourselves by is the live stream, but I'm not sure how we can maximise that. It needs to have tote figures on it. It needs constant contact, not come back for the race, be dead for 30 minutes, and then start again. It just bores you senseless. Like, at least if you're going to have dead time, get somebody to do some videos during the week of the chances in the upcoming race or something like that. Just maximise it. Like, it's just totally useless at the moment. The things that are being tried, like Young Racing Tasmania, like, it's a great idea in theory, but it's just not creating the right. It doesn't promote racing at all. Like, I've been involved in that type of social set in my younger days, and the only people it attracts are those looking for a free piss up, and none of them are ever going to be brand loyal to racing. Like, if they get a better opportunity to do likewise elsewhere, they'll jump ship quicker than like Winks can get home. But I'm not quite sure how we go about it, because Tasmanian labour market is very stagnant at the pointy end. So that tends to sort of really make the state struggle in terms of, what those things I mentioned, creativity, innovation, and progress was the other one. Like, people get to a certain level with their job in Tassie, and opportunities for career progression, just dry up. There's, and that sort of, what's the incentive to excel at your job? Like, if I do extra, I'm not going to get paid anymore. I'm not going to get promoted. Unless you want to move interstate, you can only go so far within the racing industry in Tasmania, and I think we can all draw comparisons that no matter what job we've been in, if we've been in it for sort of like 2 years, I think's the time frame, that your productivity dries up. You just, your care factor for the actual job drops markedly, and once you do that, obviously any production sort of falls off as well. I just think the actual Tas Racing business side of things needs a total revamp. I just think the staff have got it too easy. Like, they've got no feeling for how those that they actually work for, how tough they're all doing it. Like, if Tas Racing was privatised and forced to survive on its own 2 feet, I'd hate to think, how long it'd last. Just everyone, not everyone, that's a bit harsh. Majority of people I've met who work there, they've all come across with the public service type of mentality. where they think, I only need to do what I have to. There's nobody ever goes above and beyond without expecting, something in return. Like if they worked an extra 2 hours on Sunday for the betterment of the product, they'd probably expect overtime or time in lieu or something like that. Like, probably the easiest way to put it, like their pay packet's not prize money or results dependent. And that's where I think that there needs to be an emphasis put on employ people with an understanding of the racing industry, because the racing industry is totally independent of the majority of other industries out there. And if you've got the mindset of, like a general industry, then the industry shouldn't want you, because we just can't afford people to come in with that mindset, because we do need people to sort of go above and beyond, do it for the love of it as much as for the paycheck. If you just think of, the one thing I'd probably love to do is ask Tas Racing staff one question, like, how would I word it? So, if you bailed one of them up in the pub and said, if you own, just say you own Tas Racing, and your financial well-being depended on it, then how many of your fellow staff would you actually employ to do the job they're currently doing? If you look next to you, would you employ that bloke to do that? Would you employ her to do that? I think I know the answer without going through that, asking the question process. So the company would go broke in 2 months, because everything I've mentioned, we've had people in jobs for years. They know they've got nothing better to do. Their productivity's dropped. There's been absolutely zero creativity. And it's quite simple that if we don't differentiate ourselves immediately, the industry's just going to die. It's as simple as that. So I'm sort of rambling on. I probably should have been a bit more prepared. What else am I sort of not happy with? Just obviously the paying. I think sort of the prize money tiers really need addressing. The product itself's become very damaged by it. Quite simply, you can't give level prize money across the board. It's in an ideal. There's a reason why communist countries go broke. It's because that people don't strive to succeed. They're going to get the same money as. You're almost better off having a C1 in Tasmania than a C5. You actually are better off. You've got a race every week. You've got a chance to win multiple races, go through the grades. So you've got to reward the stars of your sport. But the way we've done it now is that it's virtually Tasmanian racing has virtually become the, what's that video game Tabcorp? Trackside, yeah. We've virtually become the trackside of Australian racing. Just because we've accommodated the lowest common denominator. We've got no stars. So people sort of walk away from the product. They look at that rubbish they're running. Times are average, and but whereas geographically, if it's all done at the highest level of excellence, we've got the geographic capabilities to have like a mini Hong Kong model. It's not pie in the sky stuff. It's actually achievable. So that might do me. I've been prattling on for a while, but more or less, I just wanted to apologise for what I've put out there. So I'll definitely continue it on in some way going forwards, but I probably just want to make sure my head's in the right place before I do. Yeah, probably just put it simply, I won't put anything out there unless I can put something out there that I'm happy with and probably proud of putting out there. So yeah, I might just leave it there. So in a nutshell, I'm just not going to mail something in for the sake of doing it, even though I know it's going to be probably half acceptable, because that's the exact mindset that's got the industry in the state it's in now, and I refuse to put myself in that boat. So anyway, guys, I'll get off that stupid Venn diagram, and that's the latest edition of the Rant. So I'm not sure when I'll be back. Gallops today, I haven't even looked at the field, so I've got nothing there, but it's good to see racing back on a Saturday afternoon. Be interesting to see pools, and hope that there's a bit of attention paid to turnover in certain time slots and that type of thing. So anyway, guys, there's a million things I could moan on about, but I will leave it there, otherwise we'll go for hours. So until next time, I will cut it off there, and we'll be back chatting to you one day soon. But thanks again.